Tonight, we're stepping into some really dark territory. We're exploring acts so disturbing they really challenge our understanding of, well, sanity and crime itself. Our goal here is to lay out the facts, just as reported in our sources, about several real-world criminal cases involving human cannibalism. We want to give you an unflinching look, not to, sensationalize, but just to understand the grim details. It's going to be serious, intriguing, and we'll present it clearly, respecting your time and your interest in understanding this material.
And I think looking at these difficult cases is, well, it's important. It forces us to consider some really complex factors.
Yeah.
Things like severe mental illness or sometimes just inexplicable violence. These events definitely push against societal norms. Our aim really is just to present the information impartially, straight from the sources we have.
Okay, so let's begin unpacking these. The first one, it really grabbed headlines. The infamous Miami zombie incident. Rudy Eugene, May 26th, 2012, you might recall the reports, 31-year-old Rudy Eugene running naked through Miami, Florida. It was described as just a bizarre, terrifying rampage. And then, under the MacArthur Causeway, he attacked a homeless man. The sources, they detail this horrific act, eating parts of the man's face. A road ranger, one of those state roadside assistance workers, he actually saw it happening. He alerted a police officer nearby immediately. The officer ordered Eugene to stop, but, well, he didn't comply. The officer ultimately had to fatally shoot him. Now, Eugene had some minor run-ins with the law before this, a few arrests, battery, trespassing, drug possession. But nothing in his background seemed to point towards this kind of extreme, horrifying violence.
Yeah, and what's really striking about the Eugene case is how quickly the media latched onto the bath salts idea.
Yep.
That became the immediate explanation. For those who don't know, bath salts are these synthetic stimulants. They can cause extreme agitation, paranoia, even hyperthermia. So theoretically, it could explain that kind of bizarre, aggressive behavior. But then the toxicology report came back.
Right.
And it only found marijuana in his system, nothing else, which, according to the sources, left the actual cause of his, zombie-like actions a complete mystery. It really shows how we try to rationalize things we can't explain, sometimes jumping to conclusions.
That need to find an explanation, even when one isn't clear, it sort of echoes in our next case, too. Let's shift now to November 6th, 2014. This happened in a B&B, a hostel, really, for homeless individuals in southern Wales. Police got a call about a crazed occupant, Matthew Williams. He was found crouched over a woman's lifeless body. The victim was 22-year-old Karis Yam. Sources say she'd met Williams at a bar earlier that night, and she went back with him to his room, even though it was apparently against the hostel's rules. The owner, a woman named Mandy Miles, she heard screams from other tenants. That's what alerted her. So Miles goes to check the room and finds Williams over Yam's body, covered in blood. The reports say he was eating parts of her face and an eye. Just horrific. When the authorities arrived, Williams tried to escape. He was tased with a high-powered stun gun, and he died as a result.
And this case, like Eugene's perhaps, really highlights the potential role of severe mental illness. Williams had actually been diagnosed with schizophrenia back in 2004. There was also some unconfirmed talk, according to the sources, that he might have been on a cocktail of drugs. It sort of points to those situations where maybe intervention could have happened earlier, especially with someone known to have a severe condition like schizophrenia. If left unmanaged, symptoms can escalate tragically.
Okay, from Wales, let's travel now to Australia. To the case of Catherine Knight. She became known as Australia's Black Widow. The sources paint this picture of a long, really disturbing history of her tormenting and abusing partners. Her relationship with John Price was, well, volatile, to say the least. It was an on-again, off-again affair. She actually left her second husband to be with Price. But Price, initially, he refused to marry her, and this apparently triggered what the sources call her infamous meltdowns. Her reaction was extreme. She reported him to his boss, accused him of petty theft, and because of that, Price lost his job, a job he'd had for 17 years. He evicted her immediately. But then, just a few months later, they reconciled. And Price made the fatal mistake of letting her back into his home. So we come to February 29th, 2000. Price was trying to kick her out again. This was after she'd stabbed him in the chest during an argument earlier. That afternoon, Price actually told his coworkers something chilling. He said if he didn't show up for work the next day, it was because Catherine had killed him. They bugged him not to go home. But Price, he was worried about his kids, his 3 children. He felt he had to go back. The next morning, his neighbor noticed Price's car was still there. He should have been at work. Knowing their history, the neighbor knew something was terribly wrong and called the police. Inside the house, it was a horrific scene. Police found Catherine on the floor. She was in a coma induced by pills. And John Price, he was dismembered. Parts of his flesh were hanging from a meat hook in the living room, and the sources detail this truly gruesome sequence. While Price was out, Catherine had arranged for the kids to have a sleepover elsewhere. Later that night, the couple apparently had sex. After Price fell asleep, she attacked him with a butcher's knife, stabbed him multiple times. He tried to escape, dragged himself through the house, but eventually bled out and died. And then she dismembered his body, cooked parts of him with potatoes, cabbage, other vegetables, and she left these meals arranged on the dining table, presumably for his children to find.
The level of premeditation and just sheer depravity here it's staggering. Our sources also add that she actually tried to eat some of the cooked flesh herself, but apparently threw it out in the yard. That kind of extreme dehumanization, turning a person into, well, meat. It's a terrifying glimpse into a complete psychological breakdown. Catherine Knight received a sentence of life imprisonment without parole. She was the first woman in Australia to get that sentence. It really speaks to the horror of her actions.
Unbelievable. Okay, our fourth case involves Anthony Morley. He was an English model, actually won the first Mr. Gay UK contest, but later he became known for the murder and cannibalization of his lover, Damien Oldfield. Reports suggest their relationship was complicated. Morley was described as being sexually confused, maybe unsure about his orientation. The crime itself happened on April 23, 2008. Morley invited Oldfield over to his apartment, and there he stabbed him in the jugular and multiple other places. After Oldfield was dead, Morley removed part of his leg, cooked it, and ate it. Then later, around 2:30 in the morning, Morley showed up at a local kebab shop. He was drenched in Oldfield's blood, asking the staff to call the police.
Morley was sentenced to life imprisonment on October 17, 2008. The sources mentioned a couple of potential contributing factors. Flashbacks, apparently, to a sexual assault Morley suffered as a teenager, and also a tendency towards violence when he was drunk. But what's incredibly chilling, especially given Morley worked as a chef, is something he reportedly said. He said, "At some point, Damien's body had just become something I would deal with at work, a piece of meat." That statement. It shows such a profound psychological disconnect, where professional detachment just completely warps into this utter lack of empathy, crossing all moral lines.
That's deeply disturbing. Okay, finally, let's look at the Greyhound bus attack. Vince Lee, this was also in 2008. The scene starts with Carney Tim McLean. He's a carny, boarding a Greyhound bus, heading home to Winnipeg, Canada. The bus stops, picks up another passenger, Vince Lee. Lee was apparently a regular rider, but this time was different. He usually sat near the front, but this time he chose a seat right next to McLean. McLean didn't think much of it, apparently. He just sort of dozed off against the window. And while McLean was asleep, Lee suddenly pulls out a large knife. He starts stabbing McLean in the chest, the neck, and then he decapitated him right there on the bus. Lee then held up McLean's severed head, showing it to the other passengers who were, understandably, scrambling in terror to get off the bus. The driver and a couple of others tried to stop Lee, tried to apprehend him, but they couldn't. Police arrived around 9:00 p.m. and this long standoff began. Lee was locked inside the bus. He apparently tried to escape multiple times but couldn't get out, so instead he'd go back to McLean's body. And he continued carving it up, saying repeatedly that McLean was to stay in the bus forever. Finally, around 1:30 in the morning, Lee managed to break out of the bus. Police tased him twice and arrested him. When investigators went through the bus, collecting the scattered body parts, they found something deeply disturbing. McLean's head was missing both eyes.
Yes, and the conclusion later was that Lee had, in fact, eaten the eyes. They couldn't find them anywhere. This case offers a particularly chilling insight into psychosis, specifically command hallucinations. Before his trial, Lee was diagnosed with schizophrenia by a psychiatrist. But the psychiatrist also described him as, quote, a very pleasant and decent person with supposedly no history of previous violence.
Bleh.
Lee himself claimed he heard the voice of God. Yes, telling him that McLean was a force of evil. So Lee believed he was acting in self-defense. The jury found him not criminally responsible due to his mental state. He was sent to a high-security mental health facility. But what's perhaps most unsettling, based on the sources, is that he is apparently now in the process of being fully released back into the community. So looking back at all these cases, Rudy Eugene, Matthew Williams, Catherine Knight, Anthony Morley, Vince Lee, you do see these recurring, deeply disturbing themes. The significant role mental illness seems to play in several of them, sometimes combined with potential drug influence. And they all raise these profound questions about, the human capacity for extreme violence. What pushes someone to these acts? Each story is unique, of course, but together they form this grim picture of human darkness, really forcing us to confront the edges of the human psyche.
Yeah, it really makes you think, what does this all mean? These cases definitely push the limits of our understanding. They make you question the very nature of this kind of extreme behavior and the huge challenges society has in dealing with it. Well, it's a lot to process. Thank you for joining us as we explored these very challenging and complex stories today. We really encourage you, if you found this insightful, to continue exploring. Please like this video, share it if you think others would be interested, and subscribe to the Horror Docs channel for more deep dives into fascinating and often unsettling topics.